Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. 872. Sharon Osbourne finally admits what we all suspected. For decades, she stood in front of cameras, bathed in stage lights, with a smile that could slice through the loudest of crowds. She was fiery. She was sharp. She was unshakable, at least. That's what we thought. Behind the glitter and glamour, there was always a question, a shadow just out of frame. The rumors whispered about her changing face, her shrinking frame, her unrelenting drive to reinvent herself. She laughed them off in interviews, dismissed them on talk shows, kept walking, kept smiling, kept playing the part the world demanded. But now, 872, she stopped pretending. And the truth is heavier than the trophies she's collected. It started as an obsession with control, not power over people. She already had that in spades. Not money. Her career had secured more than enough. It was control over herself. Her body, her reflection in the mirror. In the music business, in reality TV, in the harsh glare of celebrity culture. Aging isn't just a natural process, it's treated like a crime. Every wrinkle becomes a headline. Every pound lost or gained becomes a public debate. Every change in your appearance is magnified 1,000 times by cameras that never stop rolling. For Sharon, it wasn't about pleasing the crowd, at least not entirely. It was about maintaining an image she thought she needed to survive in the industry. The woman who'd managed rock stars, faced the brutal chaos of reality TV, and stared down some of the toughest critics in the world, was suddenly fighting an enemy she couldn't outtalk, outmanage, or outweed. So she fought back the way millions do, but with a budget and access only a select few could imagine. Procedures, treatments, the newest weight loss medications, everything that promised a tighter face, a slimmer waist, a younger reflection. And at first, it worked. The compliments came in waves. You look amazing, Sharon. You've barely aged. You're an inspiration. But here's the thing about external validation. It's addictive. The more you get, the more you crave. And for Sharon, it wasn't enough to slow the clock. She wanted to rewind it. Over the years, fans began to notice the changes weren't subtle anymore. Her face looked tighter, almost frozen at times. Her body seemed smaller, more fragile. And while she insisted she was fine, the whispers grew louder. In recent interviews, she's admitted what so many had suspected all along. She went too far. Her own words cut deeper than any tabloid headline. I think I went too far. It wasn't a dramatic public breakdown. It wasn't a confession dragged out by pressure. It was quiet, calm, almost matter of fact. And maybe that's what made it hit so hard. She wasn't seeking pity. She wasn't making excuses. She was finally acknowledging something she'd been running from for years. Because the truth is, extreme transformations, whether they come from surgery, medication, or relentless self-discipline, don't happen without cost. The cost isn't always physical. Sometimes it's the slow erosion of your sense of self. You look in the mirror and you don't see you anymore. You see a version of you built for someone else's approval. For Sharon, the realization came too late to undo every choice. But it didn't come too late to admit the truth. And that's rare in Hollywood. We're used to denial. We're used to celebrities pretending nothing's wrong, even when it's written all over their faces. We're used to carefully curated lies, wrapped in PR-friendly smiles. But Sharon, she's always been a fighter. And fighters eventually face reality, no matter how painful. This confession wasn't just about her appearance. It was about the pressure to perform an impossible trick, staying forever young in a world that punishes you for aging. It was about the realization that no matter how much you change the outside, it can't fix what's broken on the inside. Her journey is a warning for anyone chasing perfection. Not because she failed. Sharon's life is filled with success stories most people could only dream of, but because she learned that there's no finish line in the race against time. You don't win. You just exhaust yourself trying. Think about it. We live in a world that sells anti-aging as if getting older is something to be ashamed of. Magazines glorify transformation photos, but rarely show the long-term effects. Social media filters make natural beauty look unfinished. We've created a culture where the only acceptable version of yourself is the edited one. Sharon fell into that trap, not because she was weak, but because she's human. The The same pressures that push teenagers toward unrealistic beauty standards were now bearing down on a 72-year-old woman who'd lived her life. In the spotlight, her honesty now might not erase the years of change, but it could change the way people think about their own choices. When she says, "I went too far," she's not just talking about herself. She's speaking to anyone standing on that same edge, the edge where self-improvement turns into self-erasure, where you stop enhancing what you have and start erasing what you were. It's easy to look at celebrities and think they're immune to insecurity, but if Sharon's story proves anything, it's that fame doesn't shield you from self-doubt. It magnifies it. And here's the part that makes her rise even more powerful. She's still here, still speaking, still owning her story. That's what separates the ones who fade away from the ones who rise again. Because sometimes the real rise isn't in the spotlight. It's in the shadows. It's in those quiet moments when you finally tell yourself the truth. When you look in the mirror and say, "I've had enough." For Sharon, this isn't the end of her story. It's a new chapter. Point one, not defined by how young she looks, but by how real she's willing to be. And maybe, just maybe, her honesty will give someone else the courage to step away from the cycle before it's too late. Oh yes. At 72, Sharon Osbourne finally admits what we all suspected. But more than that, she reminds us of something deeper. Something we often forget when we're too busy keeping up appearances, chasing approval, or living under the weight of expectations. That the most beautiful thing you can ever show the world is the truth. The truth isn't always glamorous. It doesn't always make you look perfect in photographs. It doesn't always win you applause. Sometimes it makes people look twice. Sometimes it makes them uncomfortable. And sometimes it strips away the illusions you've spent years building. But here's the thing about truth. It's the only thing that lasts. Fame fades. Beauty changes. Trends disappear, but what's real stays. Because the world will always try to tell you who you should be. It will hand you a script and expect you to follow every line. It will measure your worth by the numbers on a scale, the lines on your face, the followers on your profile. And if you're not careful, you start believing them. You start thinking you're only as valuable as their approval. Sharon knows this better than most. She spent decades living in a world where the spotlight never switches off, where a bad photo becomes breaking news, where even your most private struggles are public property. And yet, she's still here, standing in the light, telling her own story. In her own words, that's the rise, not the fame, not the money, not the perfect image. The rise is when you take back the pen and rewrite your own ending. Because the real rise is when you decide to be yourself, without apology, not the acceptable version, not the camera-ready version, not the one that fits neatly into someone else's box, but the you that's unfiltered, unpolished, and unapologetically human. And it's not easy. The moment you stop playing the part they've written for you, the criticism gets louder. People will say you've changed. They'll say you've lost it. They'll question your choices. But what they're really seeing is freedom. And freedom makes people uncomfortable when they haven't found it for themselves. If she could survive the pressure, the criticism, the constant microscope, and still find the courage to own her story, maybe you can too. Maybe you can stop measuring your worth by their standards. Maybe you can step away from the race you were never meant to run. Maybe you can look in the mirror and, for the first time, see yourself, not the version you've been trained to perform. Because at the end of it all, it's not about being the youngest, the thinnest, the most adored. It's about being real. And in a world built on pretending, that's the bravest thing you can ever be.